Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that's absolutely essential for leadership, but honestly, a lot of people don't talk about it enough, and that is psychological safety. Have you ever been in a work environment where you felt like you had to constantly second guess yourself? Maybe you hesitated before speaking up in a meeting, worried that your ideas wouldn't be taken seriously? Or maybe you felt nervous about asking for help because you didn't want to be seen as incompetent. If you've ever been in that situation, you know how exhausting and frustrating it can be. Now, flip that around. Think about a time when you felt completely safe to speak freely, share ideas, and be yourself at work. Chances are that environment brought out the best in you. That's what we want to cultivate, not just for our teams, but for ourselves as leaders too. So today we're going to talk about what psychological safety actually is, why it's critical for both your team's success and your own well-being as a leader, how to create a culture of trust, open communication, and empowerment, and practical steps you can take today to start making a difference in your leadership. Because here's the truth. We cannot lead effectively when we're constantly in a state of fear or insecurity, and neither can our teams. When people feel safe, they thrive. When they don't, they disengage. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Grace-Filled Leader Podcast. Do you want better work-life balance? Do you get stuck in patterns of perfectionism and people-pleasing? Have you always been an overachiever but never really felt good enough, no matter how much outwork success you achieve? Do you want more time for the things that matter most? Well, you are in the right place. Here on the Grace-Filled Leader Podcast, we focus on spirit-driven success and share the secrets to having better work-life balance as a busy woman in leadership. Here you will learn how to set boundaries like a boss, find peace of mind, and reclaim your time for the things that matter most. Hi, I'm Tanya, a wife, mom, leader, and certified Christian life coach. For most of my life, I tried to find worthiness through achievement. I spent decades people-pleasing and pouring myself into my work. I was looking for my value through the approval of others. This led me to feel burned out, empty, and exhausted. I had no time or energy for myself or my family. I realized that I was wasting time and energy looking for validation in all the wrong places. But my life changed when I finally surrendered and God showed me a different way. It is my mission to help you start living the abundant life God has for you. If you're ready to become fueled by grace and find freedom from people-pleasing, if you're ready to multiply your time and impact as a Christian woman in leadership, this podcast is for you. Roll up your sleeves, sister friends. It's time to get after it.
Okay, first things first, what do we actually mean by psychological safety? Well, it's a term that was first popularized by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson, and she defines it as a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. In simpler terms, it means that people feel safe to speak up without fear of embarrassment or punishment. They feel safe to share new ideas without worrying about being ignored or criticized. And they feel safe to admit mistakes and ask for help without feeling like they'll be judged. Psychological safety is not about avoiding conflict or letting people do whatever they want. It's about creating an environment where people trust that they can be honest and take risks without fear of retaliation. So why does that even matter? Well, because without psychological safety, teams struggle to collaborate, innovate, and perform at their best. Google actually did a massive internal study called Project Aristotle to figure out what made their best teams successful. And guess what? Psychological safety was the number one factor that determined whether a team thrived or struggled. More than intelligence, talent, or experience, it was about trust and safety. Now, if that's true for frontline employees, it is true for leaders also. If you're constantly afraid of failure, criticism, or letting people down, you'll lead from a place of anxiety instead of confidence. That's why this isn't just about how we lead others, it's about creating an environment where we feel supported also. So why is this so important? Let's break it down from two perspectives, from your team perspective and you as a leader. So for your team, employees who feel psychologically safe are more engaged, more productive, and more innovative. A Gallup study found that employees who feel heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to do their best work. Teams with high psychological safety are more creative, adaptable, and collaborative because they don't fear making mistakes. When psychological safety is low, people stay quiet, they avoid taking initiative, and eventually they disengage. Imagine you're in a meeting and your boss dismisses every suggestion you make. After a while, would you keep speaking up? Probably not. Now imagine the opposite. Your ideas are welcomed even if they're not always used. How much more likely would you be to contribute? Now let's look at it from the lens of you as a leader. When you feel psychologically safe, you make decisions more confidently instead of second-guessing yourself. You're less likely to struggle with imposter syndrome because you feel secure in your leadership. You're able to lead from a place of wisdom and strength rather than fear and burnout. And you build deeper, more trusting relationships with your team, which makes leading easier and more fulfilling. At the end of the day, leadership is really, really hard. But it's a lot harder when we don't feel safe, supported, or valued. The best leaders create that kind of environment, not just for their teams, but for themselves as well. So how do you build psychological safety in your team? What can you actually do? Well, here are 5 practical steps. Number 1 is to model vulnerability and humility. Admit when you don't know something. Own your mistakes and show that failure is a part of growth. Be open about challenges. Your team will actually respect you more if you're willing to be vulnerable and show some humility. For example, if you don't have an answer in a meeting, say, "That's a great question. I don't know the answer, but let's figure it out together." Or, "But I will find the answer." The second step that you can take to create psychological safety is to encourage open communication. Ask for feedback and actually listen. Don't just let the loudest voices in the room dominate conversations. Make it clear that no question or idea is stupid. For example, instead of just stating your decision, ask your team, "What do you all think? Is there another perspective we should consider?" The third step in creating psychological safety is give autonomy and empower decision-making. This is a big one, especially when you lead other leaders. So what does this look like? Well, trust your team instead of micromanaging. Give them ownership over projects and decisions, and show them that you value their expertise. Don't assume that you always know best. Here's an example. Instead of saying, "Here's how to do it," say, "What's your approach? How do you think we should handle this?" Step 4 is to show appreciation and recognize contributions. Celebrate both big and small wins with your team. Publicly acknowledge effort and impact and make people feel seen and valued. For example, a simple, "I see how hard you're working and I appreciate you," can mean the world to someone. And finally, step number 5, foster a culture of learning and growth. Shift the focus from perfection to progress. Normalize asking for help as a sign of strength, not weakness, and encourage continuous learning. If someone makes a mistake, ask, what did we learn from this? How can we improve next time? So here's the bottom line, folks. Psychological safety is essential for engaged, thriving teams. It's also critical for you as a leader because you deserve to feel safe and supported too. Small changes, just listening more, showing appreciation, giving some autonomy can make a huge impact. So your challenge this week, pick one thing to start implementing. It doesn't have to be big. Just take one step toward building a culture of trust and see how it transforms your leadership. I want to thank you so much for giving me a bit of your very valuable time today. And before we go, I pray that the Lord fills you with gratitude, peace, and His amazing grace.
I pray this episode blessed you, spoke to you, or encouraged you in some way. If so, please share it with a friend and head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave me a review. That's the only way for me to know if you're enjoying the show. Nothing blesses me more than to hear from you. Also, come on over to our free Facebook community. This is a great place for us to support one another on our faith and leadership journeys. You can find the link to the group in the show notes or go to gracefilledleader.com/community. If you have questions or content ideas for the show, please send me a message on SpeakPipe or via email. Go to gracefilledleader.com/contact and leave a written or voice recorded message. I would love to know how I can best serve you on the podcast. Now to Him who can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3, verse 20. Until next time, my friends, God bless.